All right, so in the previous lecture, we defined what elasticity of demand is and how you calculate it when you have the percent changes in quantity demanded and the percent changes in the price of the good. So looking at these lecture slides, that's this formula right here that we figured out how to do. But what happens if you don't have the percent changes? In other words, maybe you're a business owner and you initially have a price point and you sell a certain amount of that good, and then you change the price and that causes the amount that you sell to change also. What we need then is a different formula in order to calculate the elasticity of demand between those two price points along the consumer demand curve. And so what we refer to that is as the arc elasticity of demand. So again, we are measuring the elasticity between two different price points along the demand curve. And this is the formula that we would need to utilize in order to calculate out arc elasticity of demand. So it's quantity 2 minus quantity 1 divided by quantity 1 plus quantity 2 divided by 2 all over price level 2 minus price level 1 divided by price level 1 plus price level 2 divided by 2. Now, although that formula looks very long and intimidating, it's actually quite easy. In other words, all we're doing is plugging the numbers into the formula and then doing out basic mathematical equations using subtraction, subtraction, addition, and division. So again, there's nothing difficult about this. We're not using any kind of calculus. This should be very, very simple and straightforward. So please do not be intimidated by the length of that formula. You'll see that it's quite easy once you plug the numbers in. So suppose I give you a word problem with that sort of data within it. So you'll look at the scenario I have listed here. Let's say that I own a movie theater and initially I priced the tickets at $6 a ticket, and at that price level the average moviegoer demanded 2 tickets per week. Then when I lowered the price to $4 a ticket, moviegoers demanded 6 tickets a week. So again, notice that I don't have the percent changes in the price and quantity demanded. What I have is the two different price points and the two different corresponding quantities demanded. And so what I'm going to need to do is use my arc elasticity of demand formula in order to calculate the elasticity of demand between these two price points. So the first step is to put your data into the P1, P2, and Q1 and Q2. So that's exactly what I've done here. I've identified $6 as my price point 1 and $4 as my price point 2, and then I go ahead and assign the corresponding quantities that are sold that are associated with those price levels. So the corresponding quantity demanded when the price was $6 was 2, and the corresponding quantity demanded when the price level was 4 was 6. Now understand that these could be flip-flopped. In other words, suppose that I had said that my P1 level was 4 and my P2 level was 6. Well, then all that means is I need to flip-flop my quantities. That would mean that my Q1 level was 6 and my Q2 level was 2. So it doesn't matter which one you assign as your P1 and your P2 or your Q1 and Q2, as long as you have the course that they correspond with each other. You'll come up with the same answer either way. So the next step is, now that we've identified, the P's and the Q's, we just plug those numbers into our formula and then do the simple math out. So again, here's our initial formula that we use for elasticity of demand, and we just take our P1s and P2s and Q1s and Q2s and put those into their corresponding spot in that formula, and then we can begin the process of doing the simple math out. So we see 6 minus 2 is 4, so that's what we have right here. Then we have 2 plus 6 is 8, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So for our numerator, we end up having 4 divided by 4, which is equal to 1. Then going on to our denominator, 4 minus 6 is negative 2, and then 6 plus 4 is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we have negative 2 divided by 5, and we come up with a negative 0.4. So again, when we do the math out, we do 1 divided by negative 0.4, we come up with negative 2.5, and then of course we just drop that negative sign and look at it in terms of its absolute value. So the elasticity of demand between the prices of $6 and $4 would be 2.5, which means our demand is elastic in this price region. Okay, so now what I want you to do is work out an example on your own. Let's say that I'm talking about the price of gasoline and the amount of gasoline that I purchase each week based on the price. Let's say that when the price of gasoline is $4 a gallon, the quantity that I demand is 20 gallons a week. And then let's say the price is $3 a gallon, and that causes the amount for me to purchase to increase to, let's say, $30 a gallon. I'm sorry, yeah, $30. No, what am I doing? Sorry, 30 gallons, not price. Sorry, lost my brain there for a second. All right, so that's my data right there for my gasoline consumption. When the price is $4, I'll buy 20 gallons a week. When the price drops to $3, I'll buy 30 gallons a week. So what I want you to do is plug those numbers into the formula and see what you come up with. And then once you have done that, go to the next slide and see if you did it correctly. So pause the program right here, pause the slideshow right here, and then once you've done the math, come back and see that you did it correctly. All right, so here's our formula that we use for our elasticity of demand. And again, all we're going to do is start plugging our numbers into this formula. So we already identified that our price level 1 was $4 and our price level 2 was $3. And then we write down the corresponding quantities demanded. We said the quantity demanded when the price was $4 is 20 gallons, and the quantity demanded when the price level is $3 was 30 gallons. So now we can just go and start plugging those numbers into our formula. So it's going to look something like this. 30 minus 20 divided by 20 plus 30 divided by 2 all over 3 minus 4 divided by 4 plus 3 divided by 2. And again, now we're just going to do the simple math out. So 30 minus 20 is 10, divided by 20 plus 30 is 50, and 50 divided by 2 is 25. So our numerator so far is 10 divided by 25. And then we do 3 minus 4 is negative 1, divided by 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So we can just continue to do the math out. 10 divided by 25 is 0.4. Negative 1 divided by 3.5 is negative 0.286, again depending on how you round. And then we're just going to do that math out again and drop the negative sign. So 0.4 divided by 0.286, we end up rounding to 1.4. So the elasticity of demand between the price points of $3 and $4 is 1.4. So that means that my demand for gasoline between those price points is elastic because I came up with a value that was greater than 1. So now what we need to figure out is how does the firm use this as a tool? In other words, if they know that the elasticity of demand for the average consumer between these price points is 1.4, what does that mean they want to do to their price? That's what elasticity does for a firm. It allows them to figure out whether they should raise or lower their price in order to increase the revenue flow for the firm. So that is what we will be discussing in the next part to this lecture series for Chapter 5.